Hi, everyone. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about how the evolution of student development theory kind of happened over time, some consistent things that I read throughout our readings, and then as well as maybe some new things that could come about just based on where we are just in our society, everything else like that. So I'll start a little bit on how the evolution of student development has happened and what has been consistent. So throughout the readings with the book, The Student Development in College, I really liked how they separated it into timelines of the historical features of what happened during that time. So I thought that was really helpful. One of the things while reading through kind of the evolution of the development is that truly it has focused on the student the whole duration. So really trying to figure out how can we best mold the student to what's happening in the society during that time. So in the 1920s, it talked about how it was more focused on developing the student for the workplace, so training them for new jobs, whatever that looked like. And then as more students started to enter into higher education, it seemed that it was all about what can we do during that time period to enhance the student. So I thought that was something that was consistent that I saw throughout the chapters. Also, one of the other things that I saw was that it really focused on closing the gap between theory and practice. So what I liked about how it talked a little bit more about what students are doing, what they're experiencing in the classroom, how can they apply that to either the workforce, research, studying, whatever that looked like. And I thought that they did a great job at showing, even now in my development, I want to close that gap between theory to practice. So I work as an undergraduate admission counselor. I'm constantly in the field. I'm constantly seeing that graduation rates, high school graduation rates are getting lower. So what does that mean for post-secondary education? So, how can I apply some of those theories that I'm learning about what students are looking for out of a college experience? A lot of that tends to be affordability, but that's something that I definitely think is a consistent thing that the student development theory can work to enhance. One of the other things is talked about measuring student outcomes. So whether that be success, retention, graduation, I think that there's a lot of things that they talked about how students have different applications that they can apply to meet some goals, or whether that be graduation, passing a test, whatever. It talked a lot about how to measure success and student outcomes. So I thought that was consistent. I also really liked how they talked. This was one other thing that I thought was consistent. They talked a lot about education and identity. So, students, as they go into post-secondary education, it's something that's totally new. I am a firm believer that post-secondary education changes a person's life, changes their family's life. And so constantly having those students identify who they are in this new environment. And sometimes that can mean many of different things. They could be transitioning their sexual identity. They could be transitioning their educational identity. Maybe they switch majors, interest, all of these things that they really didn't have an opportunity to do in kind of the environment that they were in prior to post-secondary education. So I thought that was something that they talked a lot about, and I felt that throughout the readings, it really was pretty consistent about, identifying differences in individuals' learnings. So I really thought that was great. One of the other things, so talked about what's new and could potentially happen over time. So, recently, which is so crazy to me, back in the 1970s, that's truly when our higher education industry became a little bit more diverse. More students had access to college. The Pell Grant was then, initiated, and so a lot of federal grant money was helping a lot of these students to go to college. So that really opened up an opportunity for higher education to become a little bit more diverse, and a lot of these theories that I was reading about, it seemed that it was all grounded on like what the social context was back before, that the diversity hit higher education. So I definitely think that that could potentially change the development theory over time. I also believe that, your college campus and your college culture can definitely change. I mean, I work at a small liberal arts institution here in Columbus, Ohio. We're a pretty progressive city. So we really are trying to benefit and educate the whole student, where some institutions don't do that. They may be more conservative. They may be a more Christian Orthodox institution. It really just depends. And so I think that depending on where you're located within, the whole world, I think that there are different factors and different cultural uh, barriers that you may have to face that some other institutions may not have to face, just where they're located and some of the things that the community could potentially support them. So I definitely think that. I also think social behavior is definitely something that can be new over time. I think that it really depends on the student's background. Every student is different, and so you're going to experience what it is like at, you may have more students who are privileged. You may have more students who are first generation college students, and they may need additional support. But I definitely think that that can change over time. But I am excited to learn a little bit more about student development theory. I think what is great as I'm reading through this, it's wonderful to see that it's not just about like one theory and all these students fitting into one theory. It seems that the theory is there as like a guideline and a structure to really help promote the whole student. And I am a big believer in that. And so I'm excited to really learn a little bit more about the worldviews, how we can use this, and different perspectives that students may identify with. So, but that is something that I kind of looked at, and happy to learn more. Feel free to comment below. Thanks so much.